1851, a young lad from Yorkshire, near Wakefield, came to London with a bit of a dream. He decided that he wanted to come and visit the Great Exhibition in Hyde Park, and he was absolutely astounded by what he saw, all these wonderful new adventures and new things that everybody could take part in. Literally, on the way back to Yorkshire, he had something of a light bulb moment, something that would change his life and ours for many years to come. As ever, let me explain. So fast forward 4 years later, and William Whiteley has now come back to London. He's got £10 in his pocket and he has a bit of a dream. And as he's wandering around West London, he looks around and thinks, this looks a pretty affluent area, an area where he felt he could perhaps make something of a fortune. For himself, of course. Now, what he'd seen back home in Yorkshire was nothing really like that. They didn't necessarily have the dream that he had, but he knew down here there was plenty of money, plenty of rich people, and in a very short period of time, with just £10 in his pocket, he managed to persuade quite a few backers to get involved in creating what became an iconic building, an iconic area in West London, where everybody visited, including our late and wonderful monarch, Queen Victoria, alongside the King also. Let me explain. You see, William Whiteley's dream was to turn something that he felt was something for everybody, the chance to step into a wonderful department store and literally be able to pick up anything from a hat pin to ordering a full life-size live elephant. Something he did manage to do when a customer tried to test him out on this particular claim. Interesting when you think. Now, this beautiful building, which was made of Portland stone and steel, is currently being renovated in West London. Now, when I first came to London, it was a shopping centre, and you could still see the remnants of the wonderful staircases and the pillows and everything like that, what it had been. Literally everybody came to this store. What was fascinating was that when you came to the store, you didn't necessarily have to have a lot of money. Every single person was allowed to go through the main doors, which was a big thing in that particular period. But more importantly, with William Whiteley, what he decided was he wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable, that they would spend, and there was everything that you could possibly want, from a restaurant to dancing to afternoon tea to very attentive staff who literally looked after your every need. If you're a man of money, there was a side entrance and there was a private lift, naturally. But even the great and the good mingled with each others, from servants from high society, aristocratic families, to just you and me going in there buying exactly what we could afford or to marvel at what we couldn't afford. William Whiteley created something of a dream factory. Whiteley's store went from, well, strength to strength. Everybody who was anybody wanted to shop in there. But of course, William Whiteley was a very canny Yorkshireman. We are, you know. And the thing is, what he really needed was, well, literally the backing of the British monarchy. More importantly, Queen Victoria. His dream came true in 1896. After many years of sending things over to the royal household, finally he got it. Oh yes, the royal warrant. And so much so that Queen Victoria herself decided to pay a visit to this emporium. Oh no, not with us, of course. No. After hours, a very private visit, which apparently was a huge success and resulted in her, shall we say, shopping quite extravagantly, as she saw so many things apparently she liked. But so that a little bit later on, King Edward popped along too, and he was enamoured with all the things that he could take, perhaps, for the many ladies in his life. You understand how this works now. So much so that he decided also to issue a royal warrant. Things were literally riding high for William Whiteley. He was an elder statesman at this point, but more importantly, he was known in the world of retail. He was almost a superstar that would soon really happen to all the big stores like Selfridges and Harrods. You know, if you came to London, you really had to visit this particular area. But things truly took a turn for the worst in 1907, when he took upon a caller in his private office, literally in his store. The problem with all big businessmen like William Whiteley, you know, things started to get out of hand. He was known as something of a philanderer, you know, perhaps taking out some of the shop girls that he shouldn't, that type of thing. There was no proof, but that was the story. Now, what happened, of course, was as his fame escalated, so did his power. And in 1907, on a fateful day, a gentleman decided to book an appointment on the proviso that they were going to be given a job. You know, it was like a big interview, not just working on the shop floor, but part of the accounts. The accounts that this particular individual were really interested in, though, was money for themselves. And what followed was pretty devastating, to say the least. And really, when you look at this story, it just goes to show, as I often say here on the show, nothing is truly new. Now, Horace George Rayner turned up, and basically they got into a conversation about the job and all that sort of stuff. And then he decided to drop the bombshell that he believed that William Whiteley was in fact his father, owing to the fact that there was apparently a liaison with his mother many years ago. Now, what really resulted was the fact that, you know, William Whiteley just saw this as blackmail and said, I don't know anything about this. Whether that was true or not, it was never fully established. Upon that point, though, Horace George Rayner pulled out a gun and shot William Whiteley dead in his office before trying to turn the gun on himself. But sadly, he failed. He was quickly arrested, and then the full case splashed across, of course, all the national newspapers of the day, making the store far more famous than even William Whiteley, a young lad from Yorkshire, could have possibly have hoped. Now, Horace was put in prison, but very quickly, although it was going to be a long sentence, managed to get out by 1919 for good behaviour. It was never really established exactly his motive. He was never actually given any money or indeed any payoff, but it brought the end to a brilliant career of a wonderful entrepreneur from Yorkshire called William Whiteley. Now, basically the store was overtaken by Harry Selfridge. He couldn't make a go of it simply because he'd overstretched his mark with people like the Dolly sisters. You see how sometimes women can be the downfall guys. I'm not having a go at you ladies, but you get the picture. And more importantly, after that, the store went from owner to owner. By the early 1980s, it had been sold once again and was turned into a shopping mall. By 1989, of course, it was still thriving somewhat as a rather, well, discarded shopping mall to what it's going to be today. What you're looking at will be very expensive flats, a cinema, a gym, and some level of retail space. William Whiteley may still be proud that his building still stands, if not the interior, just the exterior. It was also featured in many different films, including one with the gorgeous Diana Dawes, who was filmed outside, playing a role that William Whiteley would not really approve of, that of a lady of the night. You get the picture. But if you do come to London and you want to look at some splendid architecture and wonder exactly what drew the royals to this part of West London, look above and you'll see the W and realise that a young guy from Yorkshire who went, of course, to the Great Exhibition in Hyde Park and then came back to London a few years later with simply £10 in his pocket, truly turned his life into a dream. That is until somebody decided to turn his dream off. Neil Shawn, Hyde Park, London.